Hello, and welcome to the Millennial Nutritionist Podcast. I'm Isla Garcia, master's degree of nutrition science and registered dietitian, and I'm going to make weight loss realistic, sustainable, and uncomplicated for your busy lifestyle. On this podcast, me and my team of registered dietitians will decipher the latest nutrition research, dissect fad diets, and discuss social media trends for you so you can feel confident knowing what to eat to achieve your health goals. Research suggests that most weight loss programs aren't successful, but my experience has taught me that this is not because the participants aren't committed. It's because those diets are designed by non-nutrition professionals and center around severe restrictions. We are here to provide the facts about the science of weight loss so you can have the success you want and continue living your best life. Welcome back to the Millennial Nutritionist Podcast. My name is Isla, your founder, CEO, and host of our podcast. Today, we are going to talk about fad diets, and we're going to also talk about Mindy Kaling's healthy weight loss journey. And to join me today is going to be our dietetic intern for the past month, Laura Anderson. In order to become a registered dietitian, you have to complete a very formal, very expensive program where you basically get trained in multiple different areas of nutrition expertise, one of which being a wellness rotation. And she chose to complete hers with us, the Millennial Nutritionist. So she's been watching a lot of sessions, learning all she can about wellness and weight loss and educating people on nutrition. And one of her assignments is to complete kind of a review of some different fad diets, which is also always fun for us because clients are always coming in with different diets and I can't always keep track. And so we decided to turn this into a podcast episode because I think it's interesting for other people to hear. But thank you so much for joining us today, Laura.
Oh, of course. I'm happy to be here. It's my first podcast appearance. So
you're so brave. I normally don't make other interns come on, but this time I was like, this is what's happening today. And I think it's good practice too. And it's always interesting. Our previous intern podcast, I always say, is like our number one is the hypothyroidism one. And I would have never guessed. So I appreciate it. And hopefully it also kind of helps you and helps practicing. And I think this is the way of the future. So here we go. But tell me, are you loving any like foods or any meals or restaurants? We have a lot of listeners from the area that you live in North Carolina, or like products, anything that you've been loving recently that you can share.
I've been actually trying some of your recipes on the membership, the Circle website.
Yeah, Millennial Living.
Yeah, that's been fun, especially the spinach enchilada one.
Oh,
that was pretty good. Recently, I've also made some beet hummus.
Okay.
Pretty interesting because I like how many different flavors and all the different things you can do with hummus. So I don't see beet hummus in stores. So I thought, I'll make it. And you do need a food processor unless you have a good blender. But yeah, it was pretty good. So.
Cool. Do you still like use like chickpeas and tahini, or is it like not bean based when it has other vegetables in it?
So at least for the recipe I still used a can of chickpeas. It was basically just the addition of a roasted beet.
Good. Probably adding a little bit of fiber. Different colors represent different vitamins and minerals. So adding that in there too. We'll have to maybe add that on to our Millennial Living page too, because I always run out of recipes because I can only eat so much every week. So I'm always looking for new recipe ideas. Well, cool. My, I guess, recommendation of the week or just thing I've been loving is I've been falling back in love with my water bottle. So there's some trendy things that I really love, but there's this one trendy water bottle going around, the Stanley Cup. And I actually bought it for a couple of members of my family. So absolutely no hate, anything that gets you more water in your body. We love it. But it's like a metal bottle, and I don't know. For some reason, I have like this mental block against like drinking. I would like drinks out of like a metal container. Like I was never like all the different variations, like with the swells, and then there's like other bottles the same. But I've always been like plastic or like glass, and I've been loving this bottle. It's a 1 liter. It's called BKR. Might have been popular a while back, but I like how I only have to fill it up once. I did lose the lid, and I will say it's like not the most portable because this is like doesn't fit in a cup holder. But I like how I know I only have to fill it up one time, and I've gotten like my 2 liters of water in the day, and I just drink it with a straw. And yeah, I love it. Do you have like a go-to water bottle? I feel like everybody has like a water bottle they like.
See, I don't even know the brand of mine. It's pretty boring.
Oh, like a Swell kind, yeah.
Yeah, I do the metal ones. I don't like the idea of plastic and glass. I drop my water bottles.
Oh.
I have dropped them down flights of stairs. Like my other one that's blue has dents in the bottom of it. So I'm not doing glass. I know you can buy like rubber
Yeah.
for it, but I don't trust that they're strong enough.
That's too funny. Yeah, that's what this one is. I do like my thing that I like about that's the dilemma, yeah, because I'm trying not to do as much plastic either. We actually wrote a article about plastic recently, and it was a little scary. So I like to see how much water I've had. So I really love Turbises. But unless like this whole thing is plastic, so I trust. I mean, this whole thing is like rubber, but I can't really see how
Mhm.
much I have left in the day, so it's kind of discouraging. But what are you gonna do?
That's true.
So the article that we decided to go over today to kind of warm us up is from Hello Magazine. We put a poll out on Instagram, so make sure you follow us over there, the .millennial.nutritionists, for y'all to pick which one we're going to go over. So this is the one that was picked for today from Hello Magazine, and the title is Mindy Kaling reveals her weight loss secret after unrecognizable transformation. And if you don't know who this is, it's Kelly from The Office. And then she's done like so many other things since then and doing more like writing stuff. And it's pretty encouraging article. We were kind of like looking at it before, and it just kind of discusses how it looks like has had kind of like a mental transformation and how she kind of views weight loss and health and how she's been able to lose weight in a pretty seemingly like respectable way. I mean, nothing in the article looks kind of fishy or looks like she did anything crazy, like cut out carbs or I don't know, decide that she needs to lose 20 pounds in 2 weeks or anything like that. But what did you think when you were kind of looking over what she said on how she lost weight?
Some of the things I'll say that stuck out to me, she said, I no longer view exercise as something that needs to be punishing. And I thought that was great because I think that's a common kind of mental image we have, especially like Peloton. Not that Peloton's bad, but sometimes you just think like this super intense, going all out, almost till you throw up exercises. And honestly, that can be discouraging for a lot of people because even if you do it, for a few weeks, it's really easy to get burned out. So kind of taking a more sustainable approach, finding things that you do enjoy. And recognizing that, on days that you're a little more tired, maybe, I don't want to jog today. I'm just going to go for a walk. And that's okay. Like you still get health benefits. So I thought that was really awesome that she kind of came to that herself. So
Yeah, I wrote that down too. I think that was really awesome and not something you hear a lot of. Because she was talking about how seemed like she used to have kind of like an all or nothing mindset. And then I do see kind of keeps clients from losing weight. We've had a couple of clients while we were together that you've been able to see how that has played out. Like if you have this huge like mental block against like, oh, it's going to hurt or it's going to be so awful, like you're way less likely to start. And even I do that for myself. If I go into the gym, like, I just don't want to lift these heavy weights today. I like have to check myself and be like, but you don't really have to. You can just go in there and kind of like move a little bit. Like there's still a lot of benefits to just moving around. Every like effort doesn't have to be the hardest thing ever. And she also
mhm.
kind of talks about how she would like just see if she had 10 minutes of time in her day, she would just decide that would be like a walking break. And I think that's really cool too, again, just to like make it more of her lifestyle, which I think she said too, instead of just like, this is going to have to be like this all out exercise thing. When we talk about these celebrity weight loss efforts, I always like to think, is it like actually realistic? So what do you think? Like after watching the sessions that we've had with clients and kind of hearing about it, do you feel like her approach is realistic for even like non-celebrities or not?
100%. I feel like it's so rare to hear celebrities saying, they had a moderation approach, and not just going on a fad diet, like cut out carbs or, whatever it is, low fat. Because, you don't need a team of chefs behind you helping you make meals and balancing, all your macro and micronutrients. So I think for, people who, have families who are busy, they work, it is very doable because she's just talking about balancing her intake of different foods, basically. She doesn't cut anything out. She'll still have dessert if she wants it. She might just have less of it. And so I think that's really great. And it's something you teach in your program ultimately. And I mean, studies have shown us time and time again that diets don't work pretty much. So, I mean, when you have a more sustainable lifestyle change approach, I honestly think that's the best way to do it.
Yeah, again, like what you're saying, I think it's more realistic if you are not having to completely override like everything you're doing in life, but just find little tiny changes. And this is why I tell clients all the time too, or even like in a discovery call, I say like, we're just going to kind of look at your life overall and find where are those 10 minutes pockets of time where instead of sitting down on Instagram, you can get on Instagram and go walk outside or set up your walking pad and just be on TikTok that way. Like those tiny changes that are organic to your lifestyle and not saying like, okay, Mindy, well, if you want to lose weight, you're going to have to like stop acting and you're going to have to go vegan. Like all that is not going to work. And she kind of talks about that. So that's cool. There is like a little bit of a discourse going on TikTok saying that she like is probably on Ozempic and all this. And unfortunately, I think it'll just kind of be like a new thing because we will never really know, just like plastic surgery. But if we just take it for face value, I mean, she's still saying that she did great things along with taking medication, which is what we'd recommend anyway. Do you feel like you're tired of trying every new diet out there whenever you're ready to lose weight, but you never really find long-term success because it's either too restrictive or just not conducive to your lifestyle? Well, then let me tell you about our 3-month lifestyle reset program. This is an individualized weight loss approach where you'll be going through our proven 6-step method and you'll be led by a registered dietitian. By becoming a client of the program, you'll be able to learn how to control your weight, increase your energy and confidence, and also improve your overall well-being. Not to be dramatic, but a lot of clients tell us that they actually change their lives by going through the program and finally find a sustainable weight loss solution when they actually haven't found that with any other program. If you are interested in becoming a client, sign up for a discovery call on our website, themillennialnutritionist.com, with me, Isla Garcia, and I'll help match you with one of our registered dietitian coaches based off of your challenges and their nutrition expertise. If you're ready to find a sustainable weight loss solution in a non-judgmental and encouraging environment, I hope you'll connect with us soon. So moving into our fad diets that we have picked, or you picked to go over that we hear a lot from previous clients, tell us what your first one is that you wanted to talk about.
So the first one is intermittent fasting, which I'm sure we've all heard of at this point. So there are quite a few variations, but they're all going to involve alternating between periods of eating and periods of fasting. So some of the more common patterns are alternate day fasting. So basically, you have a day where you don't eat anything and then a day where you eat normally. There's also modified fasting, which is going to be on your fasting days, you still eat something. It's just going to be significantly less than you eat on your more quote normal days. So it might be 20 to 25% of your typical calorie needs. And then there's time restricted fasting, which is going to be when you limit your periods of eating to a certain time frame. So it might be, you eat from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. And then from 6 p.m. to 9 a.m., you're not eating anything. There are some slight other variations, but those are kind of the typical ones that you'll hear about.
I don't know. So time restricted fasting does still fall into intermittent fasting, right? Like, is there a big difference? Because sometimes we will promote time restricted fasting just in terms of somebody might have insulin resistance because there's a little bit of research that involves that. But is it really just kind of like over the largest window of time? Is that the biggest difference?
If you have like alternate fasting where you're going maybe a whole day, in that regard, it could be a larger span of time. But if we're looking at everything, considering things like sustainability for the diet for people who want to do this, time restricted may be your best bet. Sometimes when people go on these diets, they report symptoms like, severe hunger pangs or reduced concentration on fasting days. And then, of course, you also have some people who will kind of overcompensate on the days they can eat. And whether that's, from physical hunger or psychological deprivation, either way, it might negate any effect they're trying to have, especially if they're trying to lose weight. But with time restricted fasting, you may have less of those issues because you are giving your body the calories it needs to function for that 24-hour period.
Gotcha. Yeah. And it seems like pretty normal. I mean, I kind of feel like I do that, but not even like on purpose. Cause it's like I'll have my first meal at like 7 and then I'll pretty much eat dinner at like 5:36 and then I'm kind of done for the day. So it sounds like a little bit more normal too. Well, tell us what the pros and cons are because I hear a lot of like really crazy like claims when it comes to all these like amazing things about intermittent fasting.
It's a lot of times it's not a recommended approach for people with certain like conditions, especially diabetes or, if you're pregnant, breastfeeding, especially if you have a history of eating disorders,
Mhm.
even certain medications you might have a little trouble with. So, of course, always check with your doctor before beginning any type of diet. But that being said, what you mentioned before about insulin resistance, there are some studies that suggest intermittent fasting may increase insulin sensitivity.
Mhm.
We need more we need
Mhm.
data because of course if you happen to also be losing weight, well, was it the intermittent fasting,
Mhm.
the weight loss that
Right.
kind of contributed to that? So it may be helpful for some people, but certainly not everyone. A lot of studies that have looked at intermittent fasting just for weight loss purposes have found that it's really not that much better than a low calorie diet. If it fits your lifestyle better, maybe it's easier for some people to have that cutoff time, but
Mhm.
others, they still might feel deprived. And I will also say, intuitive eating is something that you talk about, I know, that and a lot of people have kind of started taking into account. And so really with any diet that has significant restrictions, even this one, I can't eat after 6 p.m. Well, what if you're hungry after 6
Mhm.
p.m.? It's just kind of ignoring those cues that your body might be giving you.
Right, and my big thing is always just, like, finding ways to make it, again, like, very organic with your lifestyle. Like, let's say Mindy Kaling was our client. Like, she probably goes to a lot of awards events, and to always be like, "No eating after 6," even though this award event is there, it's gonna cause a lot of distress. It's probably maybe cause her just, like, wanna give up and, like, end up overeating at the end of the night. So, I think if it is something that causes like, if you are really social at night, I can see where it could be a problem here too. And I can kind of add a real client example. So, we see that I see this a lot with clients who will maybe just like not eat breakfast because they've done intermittent fasting before. It's an easy way to cut out calories, which I totally get. But one thing that I see when we start trying to spread out meals a little bit more instead of just like severely only eating meals within like a 8-hour window or something like that is that digestion just improves so much. Because let's think about it, like if we're eating like a very large meal, you're gonna feel pretty crappy because your stomach can only like handle so much volume at one time. And so I think that a lot of people who come to me thinking that they have all these like food intolerances and they shouldn't be eating different things typically also eat like two or like even one very large meal throughout the day. But when we take off this like rule of like you can't eat breakfast because it's intermittent fasting and they start eating more regularly throughout the day, like breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and like a little snack, I feel like it helps their hunger fullness cues. It helps their digestion kind of move like that because that's what your body's kind of supposed to be meant to do that too. So again, if you feel like you have indigestion, I would encourage you to maybe stop intermittent fasting if you're doing that and then just see how it feels if you kind of regulate things out. But is there anything else you kind of wanted to add to intermittent fasting before we move on?
No, I think that about sums it up.
Okay, well, tell us about the second diet that you were interested in looking at.
It's called Eager to Motivate, or E2M. It's an 8-week long weight loss program, basically. It's started by a man named Jeff Witherspoon. Basically, he was a veteran who found that working out a lot helped him with his stress. And he claims that, fellow soldiers who had PTSD who worked out with him, also their symptoms weren't quite as bad. So that prompted him to get his license to be, or certification to be, a personal trainer. And he kind of created the E2M program based off his experiences. It's going to include a meal plan with it. Now, from what I understand, the meal plan is primarily they give you a list of foods each week, it can change, that you're allowed to eat. And they don't really have portion sizes specifically. You can kind of eat whatever you want as long as it's on the list of foods. Now, some weeks are pretty low carb. Some weeks, cut out all added sugars. Some weeks restrict fruit. Like it just kind of it varies. And so I will say that there is a cheat meal allowed once per week as well, where you can eat anything you want. So that maybe that's their kind of carrot to help people stick with the program. You can eat whatever you want tomorrow.
Mm. So this one is more like a meal plan. Like they give you the like or the it's more like a strict list of foods you eat from. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and they do, it is heavily exercise oriented. So members are going to get access to a private Facebook group. And I think that's how they stream their videos through Facebook. It's a little interesting. And you can work out like 6 or 7 days a week and either pre-recorded or you can watch it live. They have a ton of staff, different types of trainers, they might be certified yoga, Pilates, like all different things. They also have a lactation consultant on staff, which I thought was kind of interesting. They say
Okay.
also have a trainer who caters to new moms. So
Mhm. What are the pros and cons of doing something like this for weight loss?
it's hard to say because I don't have data like
Right.
on, their clients over time. Um, for people who really like to kind of have a regimented program, especially when it comes to exercise, I'd say this might be something they'd want to look into. It is, from what I understand, the online community is pretty supportive. And if you have any questions about it, I did shoot a message over to them on Facebook and they were pretty responsive. So, I mean, they might have some good customer service there too, but there are some cons as well. So I'd say they don't share the details of their program publicly, which I mean, I can understand why.
Mhm.
But that means that we don't have the actual food list to be
Mm,
identify, macros and micros and all those types of things. So that makes it a little more difficult to fully assess the program. But I will say that, if you are starting with this intensive exercise program and at the same time you are knocking your carbs down quite significantly, that can be very difficult for people to do. It might really impact your energy levels and just kind of make you feel sick. Some
mm.
that reaction. It's a balancing act. I did read a blog from one woman who said she really loves the exercise program, but she doesn't even bother with the diet because that's not what makes her feel best. She said she likes whole foods and things like that, which their diet emphasizes, but she's like the carb cutting and all those types of things are just not for me. So, that you can do one and not the other. I will say with programs, I feel like that are usually packaged together, like do this diet and exercise, to lose weight. I feel like that sets up in people's mind that it's all or nothing. I do both of these things or nothing.
Yeah.
Eat a meal I wasn't supposed to. Well, day's ruined. I might as well eat whatever I want,
Right.
Work out. Oh, no, day's over. So I think being able to divide those things, separate diet and exercise is actually a good thing. So that's just kind of my 2 cents on the program. It's really,
Yeah. I mean, I can understand. I feel like, from like an outsider's perspective, I think it's great if they have like this community because I think that is different from other diets. I think that's the attractiveness. I don't know what used to be what Weight Watchers back in the day when they probably like met in person. Like I think it's helpful. I was like having a conversation actually with somebody else this morning about this. Like if I think that people would be so much more likely to lose weight if the constant influences in their life are also
Mhm.
helping promote those habits. Like having a friend you go walk with instead of a friend that you always go to happy hour with, or being in an area that is very walkable, or having family members that also love eating produce. Like, of course, that's easier. So I think it's cool that this thing would create like maybe a community if you don't already have that. But you can also kind
Yes.
of work on that, trying to build that on your own. So I can see why that would be helpful. But I agree. I think that the con just with clients that we work with, I can see how it would be difficult if like something happens out of the norm. Like, I guess if you have a lifestyle where maybe you don't do anything out of the norm and the day to day is very regimented and the same, then yeah, I think this maybe could work. But like, what would happen if like you, I don't know, randomly a family come into town? Like, I feel like I'm always having like randomly a family members like, oh, I'm like flying through Dallas. Like, you want to get something to eat tonight? I'm like, okay, sure. Like, and if it was off the meal plan, like, I don't know, what would you just like not eat? Or again, like you said, like if you feel like you couldn't do it, would you just give up for the rest of the week? Or
Mhm.
if you wanna go out to eat and, like, for some reason you just, like, don't feel like cooking that night and, like, you don't wanna eat the things that are off the list, like, what does that look like? So, again, I always just wanna emphasize, like, having flexibility and almost like I think successful weight loss is having a game plan no matter what the options are to you, even if it's just like, "Tonight, is it gonna be ramen or fried chicken?" Like, let's at least have maybe a plan for how to navigate this, but if it's not even
Right.
on a list, then how does that work, right? Yeah.
Exactly. The same type of issue when you have over restriction with diet.
Right.
As a lot of people can run into trouble with that, certainly.
It's interesting. I've heard this diet coming up a lot, and actually one of our coaches, Hannah, asked about it. So, Hannah, I hope you're listening to that because that's our little summary for you. And tell us about the next diet that you found.
Yeah, so the next one, so it's Zangular. Now it's not a specific diet when I looked into it. It's more of a supplement company. So basically they sell products which are marketed for all sorts of things like weight loss, digestive support, skin health, gut health, craving control, fat burning, all those like, kind of buzz things that, people look for. Now I will say when they sell, you can buy their supplements individually or you can buy them as like a kit, so like a fat burning kit, right? And they'll come with a daily schedule of when you're supposed to take everything, right? So you might take this product before breakfast, this product with breakfast, this product after lunch, that type of thing. And they also have this 8-day jumpstart meal plan that's available on their website. And that's free, but of course it includes a lot of their products, right? And when I was looking at it, it looks like it's about 1,350 calories per day, and there weren't any fruit options on it for the 8 days, but they do have some veggies, some healthy fat and protein. But as a whole, they do have a lot of recipes on their website, and they're pretty much all branded as low carb or keto.
Mm.
That really seems to be kind of a focus of them, that kind of low carb mentality. And just briefly, I'll kind of explain what keto is, if some people don't know. So the keto diet is based on the idea that we're going to eat really low carbs to force our body to use what are called ketone bodies as fuel. And these are produced by the liver from our stored fat. And so this would be in place of sugar, which we get from carbohydrates, which our body preferentially uses that. So in order to achieve this state, you're going to have to limit your carbs quite a bit, really less than 20 to 50 grams to maintain this state in your body. This diet emphasizes high fat foods typically, and it doesn't really differentiate between what we typically think of as healthy fat or unsaturated or saturated fat, which we think of as like not heart healthy. So keto diets tend to be very high in both those types of fats. Typically relatively low fruit intake because, fruits do have carbohydrates in them. And they also focus on vegetables that are less starchy vegetables. So that's kind of the gist of that diet. It may help with weight loss, especially in the short term, but you are restricting yourself quite a bit. And as we've discussed, restriction isn't always the best for sustainability. So yeah, I'd kind of say that's the rundown of keto. It's keto in a nutshell.
Keto, I mean, that's another one that like I just feel like so many people have done in the past is almost every single person because we'll ask on a discovery call, like, what have you tried in the past just to make sure we're not doing the same exact thing that already hasn't worked for you. And almost
Mhm.
everybody says keto, I think, because I don't know, I guess like people think it's approachable, but it's actually like pretty scientific. Like a lot of people don't even realize it kind of comes from like the neurology world. Back when people were having a lot of seizures, they found that
Yep.
having like that extra fat kind of helps with that. And then it trickled down. And then, of course, you're losing weight if you're cutting out a lot of these food groups. I think there's a lot of claims a lot of times for keto, intermittent fasting, and all these other diets. You're getting ready to say that like there's this like added layer of like these things that happen with like cell regeneration and like that you're starving the body out of this. And I think more often than not, you're just also cutting out like foods that are generally high in calories anyway. If you cut out a food group, and then you're cutting out a whole section of calories. But again, just like always ask yourself, like, if you go on vacation this week, are you going to be able to follow this plan? And if not, I don't think it's like the best plan to really follow. That's going to also like induce a lot of stress in you.
Those are really good points. And if you're cutting out a food group, you're generally cutting out like a group of nutrients.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what Zangular seems to
Mhm.
promote, or, with just the recipes on their website. For Zangular overall, I do have a few things that I'm a little concerned about, I'd say. So the first one, that 8-day jumpstart meal plan, like I said, it was about 1,350 calories per day. And for a lot of people, their basal metabolic rates that we calculate are tend to be over that number. And basically your basal metabolic rate is, if you're in a coma in a hospital, what they're going to feed you to keep your body functioning, basically. So if you eat below that threshold for long periods, you could really slow your metabolism quite a bit. And so that's why any diet that's kind of really low like that kind of gives me pause.
Mhm.
And then supplements, in general, are not regulated well by the FDA. They don't need to be approved before, being sold to the public. Supplements they may not contain what they claim they contain. They may not contain it in the amounts they claim that it's in. And there have been some that have been found to be contaminated with other compounds that may not be very good for you. So now I'm not saying that's the case with Zangular at all, and I'm not trying to discourage anyone from taking supplements, but I do just want you to be aware that there are some issues with that industry. I will say, if you really want to take a supplement, it may be helpful to look at companies and products that are certified by independent third parties. So that would be things like USP or NSF International, even Consumer Labs. So basically, these companies will take different supplements and test them themselves to see, basically to verify the content claims and try to make sure there's nothing toxic in them. So that might just be another layer of, I guess, security for you, just to kind of try and get the best quality product you can.
So their main thing is it's a meal plan too, but also or no, they recommend like a keto kind of diet, but then
Yeah.
also recommend taking all these supplements. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, a big thing with supplements, which I really want to do a podcast episode on soon. I just need to make sure it's good. I don't want to put it out sloppily. Is that a lot of times those like bigger brands like I know a lot of us want to stick to the man and help the local people, but a lot of the bigger brands
Mhm.
like what's the yellow one? I can't remember that like a supplement. You know what I'm talking about? It's like the yellow bottle. They have like all the
Not nature
supplements.
made, is it?
Yeah, maybe. Like, those bigger ones, a lot of times, they'll have more of the funding to be able to help like, use a third party supplier, so they're not checking their own stuff, which, like, a
Mhm.
smaller company can't always do that.
Yeah.
So if you're wondering and it should say clearly on the bottle too, but yeah, definitely not a supporter of, this. I'm not a huge supplement person, so I'm not and then it's just, like, so expensive, and, I mean, you're not
Yeah.
really saying anything about that it even works with it being so expensive, and yeah, extreme diets just really aren't sustainable, especially if it's like cutting out a whole food group, like you said. I was thinking of a client example, because the biggest thing is I just think that a diet like this isn't also going to help you figure out like why you actually gained the weight in the first place. So, for example, like I had a client that kind of did a diet kind of like this before, just like very intense with lots of supplements and like very low calories and cutting out food groups and stuff like that. And I mean, she lost weight while she was on it, but then of course she gained all the weight back after and she didn't feel good on it. Like her digestion wasn't very good. Like she was very low energy. A big thing for her was cravings. And that's why she gained weight after because she never really fixed that. Now with us, we did work on from kind of like day one, figuring out like what these cravings were. And I found a lot of times cravings are just like we've kind of conditioned ourselves to think that a certain food is bad. So then we like want it all the time when we just like normalize it and show how it works
Exactly.
in like macros and how it works in calories. Like the craving tends to just like go away. I rarely have clients that continue to have cravings after we start working together. But we've also figured out that she had cravings when she felt certain emotions and just being able to like identify that helped them go away immediately. And then she could kind of work on a therapist with the rest of it, but just like identifying that she wasn't actually hungry helped to decrease the cravings. And then also like a big thing for her was making sure that she was just eating more protein and calories in the morning. She was super busy and she honestly didn't really like eating breakfast. So I helped her come up with some actual ideas that she could prep before that we could maybe have to go, like a protein shake and a banana. And that those are all things that just like a basic plan like this isn't going to help with, right?
Yeah, they don't seem to provide like a support page. Like, if you feel this way, try
Right.
that. That's not a thing. So,
Right.
and of course, oh, I just wanted to mention with even if you get third party verified supplements, just
Mhm.
they are not checking the label claims.
Mm.
They're just checking kind of for safety. But I just want to throw that out there as well.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Good to know. Tell us about the next diet that you found.
All right. So moving on to the Mediterranean diet, which has been popular for many, many years, and I'd say for good reason. So it's based on the traditional ways of eating in the countries that border the Mediterranean Sea. So that's going to be places like Greece, Italy, Croatia, Turkey, Lebanon, etc. So all of these countries obviously have, their own spins, their own types of foods, their own spices, right? But one of the things that they tend to have in common is that their diets are primarily plant-based, heavy on fruits and vegetables, quite a bit of whole grains, legumes, and then they usually include healthy fat coming from olive oil and nuts, moderate amounts of seafood intake, and then low amounts of dairy and red meat. And, if you're on a diet like that, you're typically going to get quite a bit of fiber, vitamins, minerals, phytochemicals, and also, with the seafood, especially fatty fish, you can get some of the omega-3s that we need. So I'd say those are all great things about the diet. And then what you're typically really not going to eat very much of are refined carbohydrates and saturated fats, like those red meats, like I mentioned.
What are the pros and cons of the Mediterranean diet?
The pros are that, people who follow this diet tend to have reduced risks of cardiovascular disease and type 2 diabetes. And it's really not overly restrictive. There's no food group that it outright bans. I mean, yes, they eat less amounts of refined carbs and things like that. You can still have them though. So I'd say that's definitely one of the good things. It's widely recognized as a heart healthy diet. Your doctors may have told you about it. It's pretty, I think, commonplace these days. I'd say it's pretty good overall.
What is the difference between the Mediterranean diet and just like my plate? Or is it like just a subset? Like what the USA normally recommends is a healthy eating pattern?
The Mediterranean diet might be a little, might not include as much dairy.
Mm,
That might be one of the main differences. But I mean, honestly, there are a lot of the same principles
yeah.
in like most of your plate, vegetables and fruit. Um,
Right.
really, if you want to talk about cons, the only thing really is with the emphasis, on whole foods and fresh foods, you might need to spend a little bit more time preparing your meals because you're going to have more things to cut up. And if you're not buying, prepackaged things, I mean, it might take you some more time. You'll also probably have to, plan your meals a bit in terms of, any like health conditions or concerns. There really aren't many. It's pretty safe for a variety of medical conditions. The only thing, because they do cut down on the amount of dairy that you might already eat, it is possible you could run into problems with not getting enough calcium in your diet, or possibly iron if you're someone who eats a lot of red meat, like red meats, and you just cut that out and don't replace it with anything. So I'd say just make sure you're getting other sources of calcium and iron.
That's really good to think about. You can always like talk
Yeah.
to your doctor about it and make sure you also get like regular labs or, support of that too.
Mhm.
But yeah, no, I have a lot of even like friends who say that their doctors are recommending it as their go-to thing to recommend now, which is great. I think it's just a little loose as far as like I think you could lose weight if you were just focusing on like eating more fruits and vegetables,
Mhm.
but I think if you're not having success with losing weight on it, it's good to work with, I think, one-on-one too, just make sure you're not, like, overeating, like, food groups and stuff like that, but I think it's a really good start, and especially just from, like, maybe, like, eating a lower fat, like, saturated fat diet, I think it's really great too because it does kind of focus on that. And the other thing too is, like, eating more of these, like, healthier fats tends to help people with,
Mhm.
like, anti-inflammation, but I wanted to make sure too that we talk about like how it can actually look in real life instead of like just generalities. So like if you think of like the clients that we kind of worked it with, like what it look like in real life, like to follow a Mediterranean diet.
One of the first steps would probably be just to sit down and try and figure out what foods do I eat frequently that kind of fit within this, and what foods maybe are, maybe I should cut back on. So that would be maybe making swaps for, your fast foods, your highly processed meats, including like deli meats and hot dogs, and then really your refined grains, so your white breads, your white pastas, your pizza dough with white flour, things of that nature. And then again, really focusing on how can I get more fruits and vegetables? So that's a big component of the diet.
Mhm.
So I would say you have to like fruits and vegetables if you want to go on
Yeah.
this diet. I mean, it's everything's technically a diet. I think it can be a bit more of a sustainable lifestyle change. But and then, things like poultry, eggs, cheese, yogurt, they're okay in moderation, but you might want to, if you really want to follow this diet to the letter, you might want to look at how much of that you're eating. Do you have yogurt every morning for breakfast and, drink milk every day for lunch? You might want to cut back on those things. And with the Mediterranean diet, like you mentioned, there are a lot of generalities. So that does make it harder, versus a diet that's like, you can only eat this, don't eat that. But there are plenty of Mediterranean diet cookbooks, which I think can be really great resources, especially if it's kind of a new idea for you.
Yeah, and I even, like, go a step further, like, when I think about clients and what they tend to struggle with, like, taking, for example, like, I feel like eating out and just being busy are the biggest things that we see, so if you take a problem like eating out, I think this is I don't even wanna almost call it a diet, maybe like an approach or like just like foods to
Mhm.
add in, these more like fruits and vegetables and healthy fats. I mean, I think it's really flexible in it. Like if you go to like a Tex-Mex place, like you could have guac and chips or guac and vegetables and there you go, or have like a soup or a salad. Like this Mexican place that I'm across the street from, they have like a really good salad with salmon and hearts of palm and butter lettuce. Like that would kind of fall in line with that. So it doesn't have to be like, well, it's not on this list, I can't eat it, or even, like, with the busy situation, like, you can still do, like, frozen produce would kinda help with this, or, I had a client who loved doing, like, frozen salmon once a week, or snacking on nuts, or having a smoothie for breakfast, bag salad, so I think this one gets my bump of approval, because I think it is the most flexible and most, like, realistic, compared to the rest. Is that how you feel too?
Absolutely.
Well, those are all we have time for today, but I think it's really helpful to go over. Those are the biggest ones that I kind of hear about a lot, especially with the touching on the keto, intermittent fasting, and then Mediterranean diet is one that I see a lot again with like doctors coming up, recommending things. We can always work these things into a program. Like I'm never going to absolutely be like, no, this isn't going to work. And typically, if somebody really likes a approach like this, then I think we as a team really good. All the coaches are asking like, what do you actually like about it? And we can still implement it. Like I'm absolutely not going to make somebody eat breakfast if they're like, I'm going to throw up if I eat it. But we're going to talk about maybe like, just shifting to some snacks throughout the day or eating like a heavier nighttime snack that's not just ice cream, still figuring out what you like, which is always what you're going to get with like a one-to-one approach instead of just
Mhm.
this is what you can do or else. Cause so we're always going to listen to you and what your body has responded to positively, but also back it up with like what we actually know works for weight loss and why things haven't worked for you before. But thank you so much for joining us today, Laura. I think this was really cool. I had a fun time going over these episodes and yeah, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. It's been a great rotation with you.
Thank you so much for listening to the Millennial Nutritionist podcast. For daily weight loss tips and nutrition information, you can find us on Instagram at the.millennial.nutritionist and on TikTok at millennial.nutritionist. If you find this information helpful, please subscribe to the podcast and share it with a friend who needs encouragement on their health journey. See you in the next episode.